Okay, so let's go ahead and do the upper legs first. And I'm going to go ahead and hide the basically everything else, so I can just focus on this. There's not a lot of geometry here, so it shouldn't take too long. We're going to need the pelvis, maybe a little bit of spine 1, and then we're going to use the thigh and the calf. We don't really need the foot or the ball because they're way down there, and we really don't even need some of these twists, but I'll put them in there anyway. So like before, I will start out by flooding the weights to the pelvis, and like I did on the arm, I'll actually start with the thigh twist instead of the thigh. So you can see the thigh bone's up here. So I'm basically going to wait along that line. Picture like that kind of briefs line right there, and that's what we're going to do. Legs are always tricky, especially like when they're close together like this. It can be difficult, but like I've done with everything else, you'll just kind of start with blocking them in, and then we can finesse once we are able to. So for now, let's call that good enough for the initial blocking on that. Then we'll go to thigh 2, the thigh twist 2, and I'll start to block that weight in here. I'm not going to block in the calf stuff on this particular layer. So now what we can do is let's go ahead and turn off our joint filter, and this is going to look bad obviously because it's all rigid, but once we start smoothing, I'm going to turn this back down to the default. So we're going to have to do some work on this upper part, but we'll do that in a moment. Okay, so this shape here is pretty bad. Doesn't look very good, so let's go ahead and just selectively smooth out that particular area to the thigh twist. This area will be covered with cloth, so it's not a huge deal, but I want to try to get that looking better. When the leg goes backwards, we can see how that looks. It doesn't look too bad. And then when the leg goes out, we're losing a lot of volume up here. So what we'll do here is we'll go back to pelvis and just put that on, because we kind of just smoothed too aggressively. And then I don't really like this shape that's coming up here. So here is where I will take my add brush, maybe set it to 0.05, and then come in here and let's turn off joints so I can just focus on the silhouette, right? I'm kind of looking for something more like this, where the line goes across. There's not a lot of geometry on this, so it might be a little bit tough. But to me, the silhouette is the most important thing, because I feel like that's the thing that people will latch onto. It seems like, at least for this row, that's as good as we can do, because we aren't able to actually add any more weight. So part of this, is just the shaping of the model. Part of it could be where we place our joint. So that's another thing that we can look at. But really just trying to kind of get a better shaping in here. This is kind of where a tablet can be very beneficial, which I don't have one hooked up at the moment. Just a little bit easier than doing mouse clicks, and probably better ergonomically. So it's getting kind of hard to see, so sometimes I'll go to the Show Original Mesh button. It makes it a little bit easier to see. And here, I'm going to set this even lower, so I can really just try to focus on the loops, right? I'm trying to keep these nice and clean and straight. Sometimes a model actually isn't built that way, so by doing this you can actually introduce stretching. But we'll take a look. So I'm going to turn the textures back on just so I can kind of see what's happening. I was trying to not have them on because this particular model has some questionable design choices, but it is important to see how the textures are behaving, and you can kind of see that they are stretching quite a bit right here. So at this point what I would do is come in and with the pelvis, Show Original Mesh, and I bring these back inward. I think this is the center line here, and to keep the intention, you can also see this is a very common problem, is that a lot of times they will texture outside of UV edges, and that just adds up just stretching the texture. In those cases you can either edit the UVs or you can edit the texture to be a little bit better and not do that as much. But painting with the texture on is actually really beneficial to kind of see how things are looking and how they'll look for real. So I can see here that all this should come back in more. And that's probably better. Let's see if we can actually fix those textures at all. So under modeling, UV editor. What am I looking for? Probably you can see some of that stuff is just right here in the texture baked in. We can see what face this is in particular if we do that. So you can see that the corresponding face, yeah, you can actually see it right here. That's what we're getting, that aspect is stretching. So we could, try to move that in, or take this diffuse texture into Photoshop and just kind of clone brush this stuff out. And that would look way better. For the leg twist, generally, like let's say you twisted your leg like this, the thigh twist would rotate, counter that back, and then this would spread it slightly down. So that's kind of how it would look. But if you looked at the joints, you'd actually see that the foot is twisted out, but our anatomy is still twisting nicely. I'm going to hide the joints again. There's some real gross stuff happening here, so let's see if we can fix this. This is what happens when you just focus on the loops and not the texture. You can kind of get some ugly shapes if you're not paying attention to that stuff. And it's a really low poly area, so but we'll see what it looks like. Let's go ahead and mirror this over, so we can just make sure that that's working. And now let's do a layer for the calf. So the calf, I actually will start with the calf bone. Let's show the joints here. So right here, It's not a lot to go off of, so we're just going to have to probably come back to this once we get the boots on there. And let's just go ahead and put a little bit of smoothing like that. So for now I'm going to call this done, but we might have to revisit it to see how the spine is interacting and then how the boots work with it. So real quick, let's put the upper body here and just see that if we rotate the spine, how does it interact with this part down here? And you can see that it is currently clipping in right there. So back to the base layer, what we can do is just select this edge ring, go to paint, add 0.1, and just kind of add a little bit in there. And that seems like that pretty much fixed it. Okay. Let's do the lower legs while we're here, because this shouldn't take too long. So these go all the way up, so we're going to need the full thigh. We're going to basically need all of the leg bones. I don't really use the toe though, because that's at the end, so everything but the toe. And then let's find that. For this base layer, since we do have elements up here on the thigh, I'm going to go ahead and flood these to the thigh twist first. We can go ahead and mirror it, that way we can test this out. So if we were to twist this, the goal here is to see, like, does it look bad if this doesn't line up? And the answer is kind of, it does. So we're going to want to put a little bit of Phi Twist 2 on these elements. So to do that, let's go ahead and grab those vertices. I think that's all of them. We'll go to paint, and then we'll go to add, and just before we do that, let's go into the Phi Twist 2 and just rotate that. That way, as we start to add some weight, we can see like what is too much, and you know, as you can see, the little emblem thing completely disappeared when we did that. But I think everything else looks okay. So we might just need to do this one differently. So let's do 1, 2, 3. And again, the way this would actually work is this would twist, this would counter twist, and then this would counter twist a little bit less. So it'd be more like that. It's interesting. It definitely wants to clip. Positionally, it should kind of be right about there, but these are still kind of clipping. What you could do in this case is, you know, copy this vertex weight and then paste it on here. But like I said before in one of the other videos, I have not really ever gotten this to work. So I copied those weights, I go over here, and I paste. Oh, hey, it actually did work this time. Cool. So there we go. And that looks much better in terms of lining up. So let's keep that. All right. I'm going to go ahead and mirror this because the next layer is going to be our I'm going to do the knee pads because I'm not entirely sure if those, I think those should go to the clavicle, or clavicle, the calf. So let's go ahead and paint, replace calf flood and take a look at that. So by doing that, we do get like this gap here, and that's kind of what I was curious to see. So now with the thigh twist 02, go back to add, we can kind of probably find a spot like that. That works a little bit better. Kind of a in between both of those. You can see it loses a little bit of volume when you do that, but it's usually not very noticeable in motion. Let's go ahead and mirror that over, and then we'll do another layer for the lower legs, which again, I will start with the calf. And let's just go all the way down. Don't worry if you get weights on the knee pad. I'm going to mask those out here in a moment. Looks like we have some vertices like way up in there. Make sure you grab those. And if we mirror, that should fix... Oh. Okay, so we'll have to fix that part manually because those two verts are overlapping, so it's kind of getting confused. For the knee pad, what you can do, I talked about masking before, we can go up to this mask and then we can go to paint and flood the weights. Then we can select the knee pad again, go back to paint and flood this. Now we basically said that this layer can only affect, you know, these areas down here, especially if we are to mirror this, because you can mirror the mask. Now our layer is only going to affect these verts down here, and we need to make sure it affects these as well. Okay. So even though it looks like we have weight up there, it's not going to take effect. Alright, so calf twist 2, it's kind of all the way up here, but we don't have a ton of topology, so we'll just start about there. And then calf twist 1, I'll start about here. And we'll go ahead and set weights and smooth. And mirror. So now if we take a look at this, we hide the joints. So I'm gonna adjust the knee pad weights because I think it's doing a little bit too much right now. So we'll fix that. And then as far as how the calf will work, if you picture the calf twist 1 as your foot, and then we do like half of that rotation, that's kind of what it will look like. Back to the knee pads, let's go ahead and bend the leg again. Black material is usually really hard to kind of see, so sometimes I'll go to default material, which makes it a little bit easier to kind of see what's going on. So let's go ahead and select the knee pad again, and this time I'm just going to go back here. Maybe we'll just keep it like that. Yeah, I think we'll do that. Yes, that issue. So you can see here, we've got this is on this layer here. Let's go in here and fix this up. So can do a couple things. You can smooth it to kind of reduce some of that weight, and then we can go over to CAF R and kind of hit Control, which will do the inverse of our brush. So instead of replacing 1, it's going to replace 0. And we can just go through here and make sure that there's no CAF Twist R on this side. And while I'm over here, I'm going to smooth this out, which will get it closer to where it should be, and then do the same thing. Replace any CAF Twist L stuff over on this side. And that should fix that. So I'm going to call the lower legs done. We have, what else do we have here? Leg armor. Okay, so that's up there. I'm going to do that with the cloth. So I think one more video and we'll have this done as well as the cloth, and we can finish up the skinning.